Hello everyone and welcome to Dave's Tech Tips. Today we're going to look at displaying a SharePoint list item attachment in PowerApps. These attachments might be images or they might be documents. You can interact with both through PowerApps, and I know that some of the hardcore SharePoint guys are going to say, but these documents really should be in a document library and not so much in a list item. And in some cases I would agree, but until very recently it's been the only way of doing it is in the list items. So we're going to cover it today. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to this channel. If you find this video helpful, please remember to like and comment and share and tell your friends. Thank you for watching, and let's get into it. First up, let's go and create our new SharePoint list. So under site contents, we're just going to say this is a claim demo. We'll get that right eventually. So by default, attachments are enabled, so you can check that on your list by just going to list settings, advanced settings, and then you'll see there is a setting to check the attachments, whether it's enabled or disabled. Right, so if we go back into our list, we just have a title and that's it. You don't need to create another column for the attachment. It's actually, SharePoint takes care of all of those things for you automatically. So in here, let's go and create an item, and let's go and say this is my test picture. And it's going to go and say, just use that JPEG over there, save that. Let's use another one and say my test spreadsheet. So that's that one over there, and let's add another one for my test PNG. And that's that one over there. And the last one, we're actually going to add multiples. So let's have a PDF, and there we go, open. So it's going to attach both of those into one list item. So this is usually where SharePoint guys go, no, don't do that. Okay, but let's do that. So my two test files. Right, and save that. So there we go. We're ready for action on that side. Let's go into PowerApps, create a new app. We're just going to create a blank app. Obviously, you can also create one directly from the SharePoint list if you wanted to. But I'm just going to pretend that this is an existing app that we want to now do this on. So I'm going to create a tablet layout. Doesn't really matter, it works on phone obviously as well. Now we can add a gallery, so you can either use the ribbon at the top, or you can use this new icon on the left for the insert. And this is brilliant because you get to search for these controls. So I can search for gallery, and it just easily gives me options for all of these controls. So I can now drag and drop it to the screen, which is another thing that's new, and it'll move it to the fairly exact location on the screen. So that's very, very cool. Let's make that a little bit bigger, and now we're ready to go and attach this to some data. So this is also new, or fairly new, which works quite well. Let's go and choose SharePoint. I've got two connections. You don't need to, you only need one really, but connect to the GLP demo site, and now the claim demo list. And there you go. You can see that it's now displaying the list items, but it's not yet displaying the pictures. So to fix that, we can click on the image control inside of the gallery. I'm just going to go back to the layers or the tree view to show you that obviously this image control is inside of this gallery, and that's very important. Right, so another thing to consider is the fact that these attachments, there might be multiple attachments per list item. So for this that I'm showing you here, we need to go and tell it to only use one, so otherwise it won't know which one to use. So let's go and say only use the first item in the attachments object, and then, or property rather, and then when you get that, create a full stop, you can see a list of properties that's available for the attachments. So the first one is absolute URI, and if I choose that, you'll see that it'll actually work, and it'll display the images that it can. So there's the image, this is the spreadsheet, which it obviously doesn't know what to do with at this stage. And so the two files, the image, or the PNG is the first one, the PDF is the second one, so it's only displaying the first one. So this seems to work. The biggest problem with this is, and I'm going to show you what this absolute URI looks like. If I copy that and I just put this in this label, you can see that this is the actual full URL to that resource. So if I make that just a little bit smaller, so it just fits in there. If I preview this, you'll see that it takes the full URL to that resource, the same way that you would if you access that resource from the front end in SharePoint. But that's a problem, because that means you need to be logged into SharePoint, and let me show you what I mean. So let's just take that out, we're not going to need that. Let's go and save this as, so that we can actually demo this. So I'm going to save the PowerApp, and then go back into PowerApps and just refresh it. And I can go and open up the demo claims. So you'll see that right now it's going to work because I have SharePoint open at the moment and I'm logged into SharePoint. But the moment I go into SharePoint and I now sign out of SharePoint, so sign out. If I go into that PowerApp, which I have open now, and I refresh it, you'll see now all of a sudden my images don't work, because the way that it retrieves those images requires you to be logged in. So that's quite a big challenge, and I think that's something that most people who've tried to do this have seen before, where that's actually quite a challenge, because that's obviously not ideal. But the way to get around that is, instead of using the absolute URI, is to actually use the value. Alright, so if you use the value, it's going to retrieve that image through the SharePoint connector from PowerApps, and not from the URL as you would if you browsed to SharePoint. So I'm going to save it again and then just publish it, and then show you. If I go back to that PowerApp that I'm now showing up in, or showing in the user view, if I refresh that screen, I'm just going to refresh the browser on this. Might require 2 or 3 refreshes just to get rid of the cache of the design of the app, and then you'll see those images now start coming through. And that's because it's now retrieving that image through the SharePoint connector and not through the URL. So if you ever use a URL in an image control like that, make sure that the website where that image is hosted allows anonymous access, otherwise you might run into problems like this. Alright, so going back into the design of the app, so next thing that we're going to do is, instead of now having an image control, because the image control only obviously displays one image at a time, and for my list there might be multiple images, we're actually going to insert a gallery inside of the gallery, and it's also referred to as a nested gallery. So let's go and get rid of that image control, and if I remove that, you'll see some of the other controls lose their mind. Alright, so because they have reference to that image, so we're going to say the X for the title is going to be just 24, and the width for the title is not going to reference the image width anymore. It's just going to be the template width less 104. We'll come to think of it, we can actually make this a little bit smaller, and let's move this to the top. And so this will be the title of the list item, which it actually is, and then underneath that we can go and insert the gallery. So to do that, make sure that the gallery is in edit mode, which it is at the moment, because you can see it's got the template row, which is the first row, selected, so that's looking good. And while that's selected, go and insert gallery, and now we're going to choose our horizontal gallery, and you'll see it's going to put that inside of the gallery, the main gallery. Right, so now we need to just get some order here because this is going to be chaos. Let's just rename that to, so this is going to be the pick gallery, and this is going to be the item gallery. So the first gallery shows the list items from SharePoint, and the second gallery, which is now inside of that gallery, is going to show all of the attachments or the pictures inside of each of the list items. So you can also see in the hierarchy over here how it's going to, or how it's nested, or how it's how the structure is looking. Right, so let's go and tell this pick gallery. So by default this is pointing to the custom gallery sample, so obviously that's not what we're looking for. So we now want to tell it to go and look at this item, which means it's going to look at that item in the item gallery. So it's going to look at that row item, and it's going to look at the attachments property inside of that. But essentially, there you go. It should now, you'll see it's no errors, and it's now understanding that it should display the image, or it should display the attachment. So if there are multiple attachments, it's now going to create multiple rows in this gallery. We can't see anything yet because we haven't told the image what to look for in these attachments. So first of all, just bring this back to size a bit, and you'll see that it immediately knows that there's one item, one attachment on this item for these three, and then the last item has two attachments. So that's working already, and that's looking quite good. Next, we can tell that image to actually display, or that image control to actually display the image from the attachment. So to do that, we're going to say this item, it's going to show that attachment, and dot, and you'll see the same properties that we saw earlier under the image control. So if we say dot value, it's now going to fetch all of the, it's going to try and fetch all of the attachments and then display it in this format. And I say try because if it's a spreadsheet, for an example, the image control is not going to be able to display that. Fun fact is, if you're using the document libraries in SharePoint, there's a function or a property called thumbnail, and then the document library generates a thumbnail image regardless of the document type. It could be a Word or an Excel file, and then you can just display that image in the image control in PowerApps, which is quite cool. But for now, let's go and change the size of the image. So we've got the image control selected, we're going to the width, and we're saying just use the parent.template width. And you'll see, because of this hierarchy, the parent of the image control is the pick gallery. And as we now go into the pick gallery and resize this template, you'll see that it changes the image as well. Alright, so let's move that up. Sometimes with these nested galleries, the template size gets a little bit confused, so you need to make sure that's done properly. Right, so essentially there is our image, and if I preview that, there are the images that we've attached. So that's looking quite good. It's not having so much fun with the PDF and the Excel file, but we'll get to those in a few. So I'm going to quickly move this up. Let's make that a little bit bigger, and you can actually make it quite a lot wider as well. So there we go. Alright, that's looking good. So next we want to get a handle on the file extension to understand what kind of file we're dealing with. Because if it's an image, we can display it through an image control, but if it's a PDF, we have to display it through a PDF control, and if it's Word or Excel, then we can't display it in a preview, and then we actually need to create a like a generic image to show that a preview is not available for the document. So let's go and actually attach an image like that into the app. So if we go to File, Images, or Media, Images, we can go and Browse, and then we can actually choose the generic file image, and it'll upload that. Okay, there it sits. So now we can go back into our gallery, and we can now start writing some formula. Now there are a couple of ways to do that. I like to add a label to the gallery so it's easy to see what the actual attachment type is, and then you don't have to rewrite that formula in multiple places. So first off, let's go and make that gallery, so edit that item gallery, just make that template a little bit bigger, then go into the pick gallery, just make it a little bit taller, and now inside of there, so we can click on that pencil over there, and now we can insert a label. Okay, so just move it to the bottom, and we can actually just make it a bit smaller as well. Alright, so the formula that we're going to write in there is we're first of all going to split the display name. So let me just show you what the display name is going to look like, because that's typically the file name. So you can't really see it. Make it a little bit smaller maybe. Let's just make that an 8. So there's the actual file name, and that's what the display name property is used for. It's the actual file name. So we're going to split that on a full stop, and we're going to use the last value of that. So to do this, let's go into the text property for this label, and we're going to say I'm going to use the last value, because we're now going to get multiple values after we do the split. And we're going to do a split on the display name. We're going to split it on a full stop, and after we got that last value, we want to return the result column. So when you do a split, it gives you a table back, and all of the different segments it adds into a result column. So you'll see there, we now see it's a JPEG or an XLSX, PNG, and PDF. So that's working exactly like we want. Now next we want to tell the image, depending on what that file name is or that extension is, just go and rename that and say gal file extension. So now we can go into the image, and by default this is showing this item.value. But now we want to tell it that depending on the extension name that it should display different images. And to do that, you can write a nested if. So if this, then that, if. But a cleaner way of doing that is using a switch statement. So to do that, we're going to say switch, open bracket, close bracket. And now you'll see in the hint at the top, it shows you the syntax for switch. So first of all, we're going to say what value do we want to evaluate against. And this is going to be the gal file extension dot text. So that's going to read the actual file extension. Now we want to say if that value is PNG, for an example, then we want to display this item dot value. And now we can add these conditions. So let's add multiples. So let's say that if it is a JPEG, then we also want to add or display this item dot value. If it is an anything else, well, really at this stage, if it's anything else, you'll see there's a default result, and now we can display that generic file image we uploaded earlier. And you'll see the moment I do that, it changes at the bottom. It shows you there are the images that we can display, and there are the two file types that we haven't specified. Next, you might want to just show the user as well what the actual file name for this is, for whatever reason. Now again, there's a couple of ways you could do that. One of which is to add a tooltip, and in there on the image you can have just show the display name. So if you hover over the file, then it'll actually show you the full file name. So that's just one of the ways that you could do it. Next, you might want to have a little download or a view icon. So if you go into, just make sure that's selected. So make sure that the pick gallery is editable. So then in there you can go and select, it's just like a download icon. Make that a bit smaller. And move that to the bottom. And then from there we can tell it to launch the actual this item dot, that absolute URL or URI we said earlier we shouldn't be using for displaying the actual image. You can now use that to launch to open up that file. So if I now click on that, it's actually going to connect to that data in SharePoint, and if it can, it's going to display that in. If it can't and you have to log in first, you have to put in your details, and then it'll display that info. Let's have a look at that Excel file. So for there, it's going to, for this one, it's going to actually download it, and for the PDF, it should display this in the browser as well. Alright, so that's working quite cool as well, and you can obviously play around with the styling and all of these sort of things, and the spacing and etc. So one last thing I want to show you is using the actual attachment control. Now, the first thing you might want to go and do is go and have a look at the input, then look for it. You might even go to insert and look for attachment, and you won't find it there. So the only way you can actually get an attachment control is by inserting a form. So let's go and add a new blank screen, and then I'm going to insert a form. Let's make an editable form, and then I'm just going to connect that to our existing data. And then one of the fields that we want to display is attachments, and you'll see that's displayed by default. So if I click on this card, and you'll see the data card value 2 is an actual attachment control. So that's the only way you can get hold of one of these things. So if you copy that and you go back to your first screen and you paste it on the left, sorry, on the right, and get my lefts and rights right. So just move that to the bottom there. Okay, so that's complaining about a few things because the border color is now looking for the parent, which it now no longer has, and the items, we're going to change that now. So to display the attachments in this guy over here, we want to tell it to display the attachments from the gallery item that you have selected. So to do that, we're going to say whatever we have selected in the item gallery, sorry, not item dot, the item gallery dot selected dot attachments. We want to display that, and you'll see by default we have one of these selected, so it's showing me the attachments from that list item. Just want to see what other error this is complaining about. The tooltip, we're not going to use a tooltip for now, and display mode is just going to say display mode edit. Alright, so there's all of the errors gone. So if I now preview this, you'll see if I select the first record, it only shows me that attachment. If I go to the second one, it shows me that attachment, and so on and so forth. So this didn't used to work in the past. The attachment control couldn't do this, where now it's actually working very, very well. So I'm not sure when that was fixed though, but you can easily just link this through to an item that or to a gallery, or that it's not embedded in. So from here, if I click on that, it's going to automatically try and download that. So if I select this, my spreadsheet, if I click on that item, it's automatically going to try and download it. So from here, you can also attach files, although we're not going to discuss that in this video. But then essentially you can upload files to SharePoint as well. If you don't want to do that, you can just change, you'll see on this control, there's a property called max attachments. So you can just change that to 1, and it's not going to allow you to add additional attachments. So you can just change that max attachment text as well to just say blank. So you're not going to see the add new option. So there you go. This is another option that you could do this and get you to interact with these files and download them. What you could also do is, if I now copy this and I go and paste them into the gallery. Now remember, I don't want to paste them into the pick gallery. I want to paste it into the item gallery. So let's just make the pick gallery a little smaller in the item gallery, and then on the right, so let's just make sure that's editable, and we paste that onto the right, and there you'll see it's all showing the same file now, because the items for this control is set to the selected. So we want to change the selected to just say this item. So only show me the files from this SharePoint list item, and this works quite well as well. Alright, so these are just different patterns, and depending on your use case, you might choose to use one or multiples of these. So that concludes our video for today, and thanks for watching. I hope you found this valuable. If you did, please remember to subscribe and like and share, and we hope to see you soon in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.